We're joined now by John Hardie, director of the Russia program at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. John, it's being stated as a productive phone call between the two leaders, one that's been praised by the Kremlin, but we're not seeing as much of that praise when it comes from different European leaders in European countries. What's some of the reactions there, as they're not so happy that Ukraine wasn't as involved in this phone call?
Well, great to be with you. I think one issue is that during the previous administration, there was this often repeated slogan, nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. So President Trump here rightly did call Zelenskyy after the call of Putin. Probably would have been better to do that beforehand so you could coordinate. And I think in the same vein, you want to be able to coordinate with European allies so that you have a common position and they're not blindsided when President Trump has that phone call. I think it's really important that as President Trump rightly encourages European leaders to kind of carry the burden, given that it's their backyard, it's their region. That also means that they need to have an active seat at the table. They can't be sort of stuck to pay the bill on a deal that they didn't negotiate and have buy-in into.
And what does this mean, John? The first meeting between these two presidents, it symbols certainly a shift in policy that many had been expecting in the first place now that Trump is entering office. But still, a meeting, the two leaders sitting face to face, what type of an image does that project to the public?
Well, we'll see when and if the meeting actually happens. I think there's a lot of tough diplomacy to go into that, and hopefully President Trump will not just take a summit with Putin for the sake of doing that. I think that would be the wrong message to send and would sort of reduce international pressure on Putin and kind of start to welcome him back into the international community before he actually makes concessions and a deal is struck. I think it's important to remember that the two sides, meaning Russia and Ukraine, their goals for the war are still at odds, that there's a long distance between them. And reconciling those is going to be really tough, if not impossible.
And so then what's the next goal then if Trump can't be the man to broker some sort of a ceasefire or end to the war between these two countries? As it stands right now, what are we seeing between both Russia and Ukraine?
I think President Trump could get a deal done. I think if he wants to maximize his chance of doing that and getting a good deal that protects U.S. interests, that does not embolden Russia and China and lead to, raise the likelihood of a follow-on war, then he needs to focus now on maximizing leverage over Putin. That means tightening up economic sanctions to include the oil revenue, things like going after the shadow fleet that ferries Russian oil around the world, and also continuing military aid for Ukraine. I was encouraged to see President Trump commit to doing that, and I hope we'll continue to surge aid and ask Congress to ensure he has all the funding and authority he needs to do that for as long as necessary.
Well, and John, another country that's being thrown into these negotiations, Saudi Arabia, as Trump says that should be the meeting place between these two leaders if they were to have this meeting. It's more of a surprising role for some as they think about a mediator between the Russia-Ukraine war.
Well, I think the Saudis have, obviously great relations with the U.S., especially under Trump, and then also fairly cordial relations with the Russians. And the Saudi Crown Prince has been, I think, helpful in facilitating, for example, the prisoner release that just happened, also some previous POW exchanges between Russia and Ukraine. So I think both sides see Saudi Arabia as a site that could be a good host for negotiations.
All right, John Hardie, thank you for talking about these interesting developments and what we could possibly see to come from both Trump and Putin. We'll be keeping our eye out if some sort of a meeting does happen. John, thank you.
Okay, thank you.